Meet the Freshman Kentucky Wildcats edition. Kentucky scored very, very highly on our transfer rankings. We're doing the same exercise with freshman classes for next season. We ranked the top 21 in college basketball. Kentucky slots in at 20th overall. And I think that surprised some people, and maybe for good reason. It's a small class, it's not crazy. I had them 22nd on my list. You had them 20th on your list, and they end up at 20th. So, all in all, not far off from where either of us had them. It's only a three-man class, and it's really a 2.5-man class because Travis Perry and Trent Noah are the true incoming freshmen here. Colin Chandler was in the high school recruiting class of 2022. He committed to Mark Pope at BYU. He went on a Mormon mission and has been unavailable to play. He will now play his freshman season a couple years older than he would have, but he was a very high-rated prospect back in that class. So we're going to treat him as part of this class. That's part of why I think they made the top 20. I don't think I'm breaking any minds by saying this. If it was just Perry and Noah, I don't think they would have been in the top 21. There's a lot of classes that have three or more players that are maybe a little more instant impact, but we do believe Colin Chandler could potentially be a big part of this team, and he was enough to get them over the hump through the finish. So we'll go player by player here. We'll give our expectations, and then I have some superlatives at the end for you. We'll start with Trent Noah. He was kind of a late ad after Mark Pope was hired. 6'5", 150th rated player in the class, three-star kid from the state of Kentucky. And just like a couple other members of this team and of this class, shooting is the sell.
Yeah, shoot. And what's Mark Pope and his teams like to do?
Shoot.
This is a great ad for Mark Pope because one, I love the actual fit into what the team like wants to do, right? Like I think that we'll talk about Perry next, but Noah and his ability to shoot the basketball, and also the fact that he's like a kid who I think you could picture being in the program too for a good amount of time. I think having his ability and his size to shoot, I think that eventually he's going to end up being a really good player at Kentucky.
Do you think he's a total non-factor in year one?
Given the other guards and wings and shooting that they have, I think so, yes.
I think there's too many old guys, right? Too
Yeah.
many old guys that can just already shoot.
But if you do the thing with this freshman class, right, and you think about keeping them in the fold and then moving forward, maybe you add some big freshmen or you add some other transfers. It's like having some program guys around that will play eventually. I think will work wonders for them.
Yeah. Okay. So Trent Noah was a great ad, even if it's not a sizable on-court impact early or even maybe ever guaranteed. Here's why. When you're Mark Pope and you take over the program in the state that it was in, and you need to rebuild the roster, and Cal Perry's going to take every single player from the roster with him for the most part, the number one thing you need to do is fill the team with 13 guys. And if you're filling the team with 13 guys, I would argue, as nice as it is to add 10 transfers or however many they did, maybe what's nicer is having guys that are not going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And Trent Noah and the next name on this list are two guys that, quite frankly, I will be stunned if they ever willingly leave the Kentucky program. I also would be pretty shocked if they end up in the NBA. So you've got two guys that are going to project as rotation players at some point in their career, and if not, great practice players who would die for the Kentucky logo, who have said over and over again how important it is just to be a part of this, who grew up in the state, who just are happy to be there. That matters for culture and for vibes. Now, the thing with Trent Noah is he can really shoot the basketball. Like the film on him is like knockdown, wet, pretty shot. He also is listed at 6'5", and he looks taller than 6'5". Like if you watch the film, to me, he strikes me as a guy that I don't want to just predict growth spurts, but by the time he leaves Kentucky, he could be 6'8", and I wouldn't bat an eye at all. Like he kind of looks like he's that tall right now. And if you think about what's going to happen with him this year, who better for him to learn from for a year than Kobe Bryant? A 6'7" guy that was unheralded, that is just an absolutely lights out shooter. I think Brea can take Noah under his wing. Also, they both have two-syllable last names that end in I think this is going to be a flawless thing. I'm happy for Trent Noah, and I'm not underrating him by saying he's a non-factor because I think it's really, really important that Mark Pope started his class with him. Next on the list is Travis Perry, 6'1", more of a true point guard type. Top 100 kid, 4-star, 84th rated player in the class per on three. Travis Perry was a commit to Kentucky when John Calipari was the head coach. There were a lot of schools after Travis Perry, including my school. Michigan wanted him for a while. It seemed pretty obvious he was always going to end up in Kentucky. When Mark Pope took over, Travis Perry went nowhere. He said, I'm yours. And he was the first guy to really reaffirm his commitment. What do you make of his game?
So he's undersized, obviously, like you mentioned at 6'1", and I mean he's a guy that can really score the basketball. He gives me like I'm trying to think like undersized, kind of smaller school kid guys that just filled it up. He gives me like a little bit of Joe Girard vibes, just in like the prolific scoringness of the way he scores the basketball and the quick release that he has. But he is undersized. Competition level was a little bit different and where he played high school at, but I think that he's a guy that can certainly shoot the basketball. I have questions if he can separate at the college level, given his size. But I do think at least he's a guy that you can count on to be a knockdown spot up shooter if needed.
Yeah. I like the Joe Girard comp. I think that would be close to a best case scenario outcome.
Yeah,
And I also think Travis Perry is maybe more of a floor general than Joe Girard was. Joe Girard was just out to score, and that's it. And Travis Perry can certainly do that. But I also think Travis Perry can kind of run an offense. And I think it's going to be good for him to not need to step in and be the starting point guard on Kentucky from day one. But I would bet you it's a guy who relishes like competing with a guy like Kirk Risa in practice and Lamont Butler, two guys who have won a lot of games. There's rumor with Travis Perry that like in practice drills, he shoots 85% from three on 600 attempts. Like I just I want people to step back broadly and realize something. There's being a shooter or being a good shooter, and then there's being that shooter. And I watched this happen with my John Beeline era Michigan Wolverines when Nick Stauskas came up. Nobody really knew who he was. And all I was getting was grainy footage of him in the snow in his parents' driveway. Oh, here's a new footage of Nick making 150 straight threes in his driveway. And everyone's just like, yeah, that's not real basketball. But then he stepped on the floor and you were like, oh, the shot's for real. That's all that matters. I think that's the type of shooter Travis Perry is. The issue for Travis Perry is that he is 6'1", and I think it's a generous 6'1".
yeah.
Nick Stauskas was 6'6". And if Travis Perry was 6'6", we're talking about him as a top 40 player in the class, a guy who you have no doubt playing a role at college. Joe Girard maybe is a good outcome. There's also the outcome where he's foster lawyer, Cart. And they had the same frame in high school. Foster lawyer was a 3-star 150th rated player, not a 4-star 80th rated player. But I see Foster Lawyer in the film where it's just like, oh my God, he's torching a really low level of competition. His shot is so good. He can pull up from anywhere. It's going to translate. And then you get to college and you're just a little overwhelmed by athletes. So I am worried that he gets lost in the mix. But again, as a starting point for who you're building a program with, I don't think you can do better than Trent Noah and Travis Perry together for the offense Mark Pope runs and for just program guys he's trying to grab. The final name in this class is Colin Chandler. Colin Chandler, I think, is the one guy I would say they're hoping is a serious rotation member. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I love Colin Chandler, Greg. I've been waiting for I understand his morals and his beliefs. I'm so glad that his mission is complete because I've been waiting to see this kid hoop. I was excited to see him hoop when he was at BYU. His highlights really popped to me, the frame, everything like that. Colin Chandler is the kid I think is going to find his way into the rotation on this team.
I think they want him to. I for sure buy that. He's
I
not.
think he will.
Why do you think he will? Like, what? Who's he going to beat out? Because if we're looking at the wing spot for Kentucky this year, we're looking at Kobe Bryant, Jackson Robinson, Otega Owe. Can he
Well,
can he play next to those
when
guys,
you put
or
it like that, play him next to him. Find a way.
I mean, you go small, play one of those guys at the four, bump Andrew Carr out or down, play big, bump Lamont Butler down. Like there's flexibility with this roster, which I really like. I guess I'm just trying to figure out where do you slot him in caliber wise this year with those guys because Brea and Robinson are proven commodities, and I think Otega always pretty versatile.
Yeah, and the Owe, news, or at least the OA kind of rumblings out of there, been he has been really good, and his potential is really, really good as well. But I just think that Colin Chandler is a kid that you got to find a way to get out there. So if you got to tweak things, find a way to do it. I think he needs to be in the rotation and play.
Yeah, I hope it happens, and I think it will happen. I also want it on record. Colin Chandler has the greatest face for college basketball of all time. Like, if he becomes really, really good, I think we just enter like great NIL era opportunities, and also like he's going to be a villain just because of like his whole look to him. There's an aura that I love. He has shit to him too. That's one of our favorite like phrases. But when we assess people, it's like, are they tough? Do they have shit to him? Like he plays with a swagger offensively that matches well with the athletic gifts that he has. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And look, like I said, I was very excited to watch him when he was going to play at BYU. I guess I've been a BYU guy since day one. Am I a Mark Pope guy? I don't know. I'll have to do this. I'll have to do some inner dialogue on that one. But I really like his game. I think he's really, really good. And in a in a being a kid like from, I think it's Utah where he's originally from. He's a consensus top 30 kid by most recruiting websites. So like he can go.
Yeah, 33rd in the class of 2022. And in the practice film or the scrimmage film against the TBT team for Kentucky, there were a bazillion really athletic through contact finishes for Colin Chandler. Like if he's doing that against guys that played or are playing professional basketball right now, I think you should feel good about his ability to do that in the actual season, the SEC. Okay, some superlatives. Is there a one and done here? I assume we both think no.
No, do not think
Who
there's one.
who's the best player this year?
I'm gonna go Colin Chandler.
It should be a very quick Colin Chandler. I think he's the only guy in the rotation, and that's okay for year one. Who has the best career at Kentucky?
Noah.
Really?
Yeah.
That I think most people will be very surprised by that answer. He's kind of the forgotten guy in the class. Why do you think he'll have the best?
I think he's gonna be there the longest and be the most productive while he's there.
Got it. Okay. I think it's Chandler. I'm not going to overthink it. I think there's one blue chip in this class. I don't think he's a one and done. I think you're going to get 2 to 3 really good Colin Chandler years, and that should be enough to consider him the best player. Who will be the biggest disappointment in this class?
Unfortunately, it's Travis Perry, given the others in the class.
Yeah, I don't think Noah can disappoint you because you have no expectation. So that means it's either Chandler or Perry, and by default, that makes it Perry. If he doesn't play in year one, I think there would be some Kentucky fans who might just be a little disappointed. And down the line, I do have concerns on if like you're trying to build around Travis Perry. He's kind of got like a tough job here too, right? Like you give him credit for being such a beloved program guy, but now that Mark Pope's in here, hey, we want Jasper Johnson and Braden Burries. So, like thanks for being here, but maybe we're already recruiting over you. It's not an easy position to be in, and I give him credit for sticking it out and seeing what happens. But I don't think he's going to play on the court much this year, and I think if the recruiting classes go well in the future, he may not in the future either. So that's my answer. There you have it. I don't like any of these videos on a disappointing note. The 20th best recruiting class in the country, the Kentucky Wildcats. If you want to see the other 20 videos in this series, we're dropping 3 per day over on the channel. Car, you know what I love about you?
That I'm handsome?
You're reliable. I can count on you. Honestly, you remind me of Aaron Henry a little bit. Remember when like, their back was against the wall, nothing was going right, and man just showed up every day. He didn't make excuses. There were no problems. There were just solutions.
Sounds like me.
That's you. And it also reminds me of Duncan Mechanical Solutions, because if you're looking for quality furnace repair, look no further than the heating and air experts that you can trust. Comfort and quality are their standard. They're an HVAC company that serves Northeast Indiana and Southern Michigan, whether it's heating and air conditioning, plumbing, kitchen and bath remodeling, or emergency services when you need them most. Duncan Mechanical Solutions has reliable service that you can count on. Cart, remember when your basement almost exploded?
I remember when my basement almost exploded. I remember when my furnace itself was acting funny. I remember when my AC was acting funny. I wish I had Duncan in my back pocket. I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been anywhere in northern Indiana or southern Michigan that hasn't been perfectly cool or perfectly warm, depending on when the day called for, and that's because of Duncan Mechanical Solutions. They are the presenting sponsor for the month of July. Shout out to Duncan Mechanical Solutions. Go to duncanmechanicalsolutions.com to learn more.